Hello, hello. Good evening and welcome to the Hustle and Shine podcast. There is a Diamond Heist tonight. I'm going to give you guys a couple of minutes to call your crew. Make sure that you share the live. Make sure that you like and share. And I'm going to tell you guys a couple of announcements while you guys gather all of your crew into the comment section. Because I'm a little nervous, so I definitely need to see some diamonds in the comment section. So just to give you guys a couple of announcements of what's going on with the Diamond Writers. If you didn't hear, She is out and available. So if you haven't gotten yours, you have got to go and order yours today. You can get them on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, and at the Diamond Writers website, www.diamondwriters.com. And we have another book, My Own Renewal Journal. If you haven't gotten this, you could also get this on Amazon. But enough with the books. We're going to talk about a couple of events that we have going on. So this summer we are busy. We have our virtual journal series that is going on. If you haven't heard about it, please go to the website, check it out, and make sure that you register. They're going to be on Sunday evenings, and there will be a few, so you don't have to come to all, and you could come to some. But if you can make it to all, we'd love to see you there. And other than that, we have some live gem classes that are going to be happening. We have some going on in Brooklyn, and we have some going on in Georgia. So if you're in either of those places, make sure that you're in the spaces, okay? And other than that, I just want to see, is anybody commenting? Are you guys sharing? Are you guys sharing the live? Hey, I see some diamonds in the bottom. Welcome. Yes, thank you. Hey, Jessica. Hey, Bernadette. So I have a very interesting show for you guys today. And it's about epilepsy. So we're going to be talking about the value of awareness and how epilepsy impacts individuals, especially the caregiver. And so I have a special guest that I brought with me today. Her name is Tara J. Gibson. She is an entrepreneur as an R&B pop singer. She's a songwriter, an actress, a radio personality, an activist, and a humanitarian. She's into music, and she's been into music since she was 6 years old. And she's going to come on and she's going to tell us a little bit about how her music intertwines with her career and experience with epilepsy. Let's welcome Tara J. Gibson. Hey, Tara.
You hear me? Okay. Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you.
How are you today?
Exhausted. I think I'm just used to saying it because I'm always exhausted. That's just my main word at this point. I don't think I know what it feels like to not be exhausted. You know, when you're just so used to moving, regardless of how tired you are, you always got to get up. You always got to, all the hats that you wear and fulfill those roles.
Yes.
Yet what it actually feels like to rest. So, but I'm here. I'm alive. I'm blessed.
That's right. And I'm so happy that you were able to join me this evening to have such a discussion. I am definitely new at being so vulnerable and talking about what's going on with me. And you have so much experience. And I'm just happy that you were able to be on the show tonight.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm really excited for this show. I have a lot to say. When you're talking about awareness, especially with something that has affected your life tremendously, there's not enough hours in a day that you can go in about everything that goes into dealing with a condition like epilepsy or any condition for that matter. It's just a matter of how it affects you. So,
right.
I'm definitely glad to be here and share my knowledge and my experience and what I'm doing for the community. And what we're doing for the community, should I say, because it does take a team effort in spreading awareness.
Yes. Thank you. So, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, you said it very nicely in the introduction. I said, but she should write my bio. Okay. Well, I am Tara Gibson, aka stage name TJ Vita. I am an activist. I'm a spokesperson for domestic violence. Um, I also am a R&B slash pop singer and songwriter. I'm an actress. Um, I'm also a vice president to Bomb Baby Records. I have a number of radio shows that I host. I haven't done radio in a while, but I will be bringing some of my shows back. Um, and that's pretty much where I'm at. That's my entertainment life, activist life, so to speak. On a regular day-to-day basis, I'm just a mom, beautiful 13-year-old daughter. I have my son who's 21. He's going to be 22 very soon. I work in medical, and I, I'm always moving. I'm always doing something. But that's just me, you know. I created Seize the Cure, originally Seize the Cure in 2017.
Okay.
It was only supposed to be a one-time event that has now turned into a recent 501c3. I'm really excited to share that because since 2017, it's just been so organic in the movement of me just doing a one-time event to next thing I know, I've done 6 events and then workshops and trainings and activists and programs and different things. And now we're finally a 501c3. So I have a lot planned with that. And it's now called Seize the Cure, the number 4 epilepsy.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Because I know we met before this even happened, and
Mhm.
I've seen you work so hard towards this. So that's definitely a great move for you. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. And one thing I am working on that I like to share is I tend to forget to the last minute to say it, but I do have a master's degree in forensic psychology, which I am now working on my doctorate.
Interesting.
Mhm.
Okay. You just a prize full of tricks, huh?
Yeah, that's why I'm aging the way I am. But interesting, you said something on how we met. Do you want to go? Do you want to share that story? I think you should share that story because you say
Yes.
it so nicely.
Yes, I will. So I wanted to focus on how important awareness is. And in that, I have to tell you guys about how I met Tara. So I was working at a community organization, and Tara actually came in because she wanted to do an event. She wanted to do a Seize the Cure event and tell our parents and families about epilepsy. And the whole topic was new to me. I was familiar with what seizures were, or what they looked like, rather. I wasn't even familiar with what they were, just knew what they looked like or what some might look like. But she came in and she gave me more information. And while we were talking, yes, I want her to come and give this information, but I want to know more. I want to know more so that I know that what I'm giving to my families is conducive for the community. And so we sat, and as she started telling me more about how epilepsy can present itself, especially in children, a lot of things sound familiar to behavior concerns that I was dealing with my youngest son. And so as we were having this conversation, there was a lot that I was able to hold on to, which brings me to how the awareness was so important. This was in the end of 2019, because the pandemic hit in March of 2020, at least at New York. And we ended up having to shut down. We closed on the 20th. Our event was supposed to be on the 24th or the 25th. So we didn't get to do the event. And so, of course, with COVID, everything shut down and we had to stay home. Speed up just a little bit. My son ends up having a seizure. And when my son had his seizure, it was like it was confusing, but I felt like I know something. And so, with the knowledge that I did have, I was able to make good choices on my son's medical care moving forward. Had I not had the information that I had received from Tara, I think that I would have walked into that situation emotionally, and that situation probably would have devoured me. But because I had tools from that encounter that was clearly divine, you
Mm-hmm.
know, we're here today. And my son is actually doing very well. But we'll talk about that later on.
Well, that's always good to hear, no matter what time of the story. It's such an interesting story, though. When you called me, well, go ahead. You were about to say that too. I just kind of drifted off when you said your son was doing so well.
So my son was, while I was going through everything, something I said I needed to reach out. I needed to reach out to Tara because I needed to let her know that this happened. That she came, she made me aware, and then it happened in my household. And I was very grateful for the encounter because it helped me out. And so I was trying to get in contact with her, and it was like we were going playing tag real quick, but we couldn't get together. And then Tara contacts me. She finally gets a hold of me, and she has another opportunity for me to join her on a wonderful journey. And so that is how the awareness is important, and just a little bit about how you never know what the connection is going to be when you cross paths with people. Sometimes you have a conversation and you'll think that it's just for that moment. But then when something comes up in your life and you can go back to remembering the information that you got or feeling a feeling from the conversation that can help you move and pivot in a positive manner that can help you,
Mm-hmm.
it's amazing. It's amazing. I couldn't believe how everything happened. And I myself had to like step back and look at how good God is, because it could have only been him to put those supports in place for me before things were even going to happen.
Well, forgive me if I kind of go like this because when my brain starts going and my mouth just kind of follows. Um, it's interesting as I listen to you speak about your first experience when your son had his seizure. Well, let me ask you, when he had his first seizure, do you remember what you were feeling at that exact moment?
Yeah, I was scared. I was confused. I felt lost. I was yelling for my oldest son, but he had his door closed and he had his headphones on, and
Mm.
I didn't feel like there was anything that I could do. And I kept wondering what I did, because I was cooking and he had just came in the kitchen. I made spaghetti because it was 2 days before Thanksgiving. So I was making something quick. You don't want to cook a whole, Thanksgiving coming. So he came in the kitchen and he wanted to taste the sauce. He tasted the sauce, and it was almost instantly that he went into the seizure. And I knew he wasn't playing. Eamon is a comedian. And I knew that this wasn't a joke because of the way that his face was moving and the way that his body was moving. And I didn't know what to do.
You know something? I just learned something about you, and you're about to learn about me that we did not never spoke about. You
Hmm.
said you were making spaghetti.
Yes.
When my son first had his first convulsion, he was coming home from the hospital, and I was making his favorite meal, spaghetti.
Wow.
And he was sitting on the couch with his sister. His father had just left. His father may have been 10 minutes away when this seizure happened. I had the phone in my hand while I'm cooking. And when you hear my daughter was laughing. I mean, she was hysterical laughing at him. And I thought, he was just making her laugh. He's happy to be home. So I go look at him and he's on the couch and he's going. Now I think he's just playing around. He's just doing a funny gesture or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So she continues to laugh, and it must have been maybe 2 minutes if I had to guess. And I look again, and he's doing the same thing, and I'm like, Malik, stop, stop. I kept telling him to stop. I go back to the kitchen to the pot. I go back and I look at him again. He's still doing it. At that point, I yell at him. But then when I look, I'm like, wait, something's not right. And I tapped him. I realized what was happening. Now, at that point, I still didn't know what I was looking at was a seizure. I just know that he was shaking. His eyes were behind his head. He was rolled behind his head. He had foam coming out. And it was violent, violent, violent bursts. My phone was in my hands. And I was running around the house looking for the phone, screaming my head off.
Mm-hmm. That's how I do. Yep.
By the grace of God, my neighbors were right next door and they heard me. And he came and my door happened to be open. And he came in and he called 911 because he saw I was in distress. Now, I asked you that question about that feeling because when you have, I thought maybe the medication they put him on was, a reaction to this happening. So within 2 months, he had a few more seizures and we took him off the medication. Little did I know that it was going to be years, that this condition wasn't going anywhere and it was an actual condition.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that feeling that day of pure panic and fear, awareness that I'm not very good in an emergency situation with my own kids. So I was beating myself up for that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if he were to have one, and he's had a good over 300 seizures, convulsions. If he were to have one, I don't panic as much, but I will tell you there is one feeling that never leaves, and I'm sure you can attest to this as well. When your child has a seizure, it's like the world just stops.
Yes.
Everything just stops. And you're moving to make sure they're safe. You're doing all the precaution during a seizure, timing, making sure the process and making sure you clear everything away from them to hurt themselves. But that whole time you're just moving. Your heart is frozen, your brain is frozen, you're just at a complete standstill. It's like you just can't breathe yourself.
Yeah.
And that's one feeling that has never left, no matter how many I've dealt with him. Awareness. It's so crucial, and it's something I'm so passionate about because I think of what I was not told, that I had to learn the hard way through emergency situations or through fighting for what's right, not even knowing what I was fighting for or what I should be fighting for, but I just common sense. And let's face it, I happen to be the kind of person that if I don't know something, I'm going to do my research, I'm going to look, I'm going to ask questions, no matter how stupid they may sound to me.
Yes.
But a lot of our people, and when I say our people in the urban community that are working 2 or 3 jobs or don't speak English or don't have education, don't even know that this is something.
Yes.
Okay. And what's happening is the school system is deciding based on how your child learns differently that your child needs, whatever that they're going to make money off of labeling your child. They're not telling parents, take your child to a neurologist.
Nope.
Make sure there's nothing neurologically going on, because behavioral problems are a sign of a neurological problem. Not saying it's definitely the situation, but wouldn't you want to rule it out?
Right. And that was one of the biggest things for me. And in the beginning, I had beat myself up about it because, we all know that in life it's based on the knowledge that you have. So I knew that I had been dealing with behavior concerns with him from the time he was in preschool. Mm-hmm. But the knowledge that I had and the information that I had about family backgrounds I assumed that it might have been bipolar or schizophrenic, and they couldn't diagnose that at such a young age. So, with dealing with his behavior concerns, that's what I was anticipating this being, him having, some kind of behavior condition.
Mm-hmm.
However, or mental health condition. However, we found out that after about a year of him experiencing the off and on seizures, which Eamon's seizures were bad. If you on a EEG, he would show up to have 8 to 10 seizures a minute.
Mm.
But when it came to visible seizures, the days would change. There would be one day where he wouldn't have a seizure at all, and then there could be a day that he has seven. So, with us going back and forth for about a year, we ended up finding out that he had Rasmussen's encephalitis, which has epilepsy. And so, with Rasmussen's encephalitis, the front left part of the brain is what is affected. And what we found out through the imaging was that the front left part of his brain was also not fully developed. So all of the issues that we were dealing with stemmed from behaviors that were connected to that part of his brain. And
Mm-hmm.
so my son didn't have, the what he was dealing with was going unseen and undiagnosed. So when I found all of that out, I felt bad because it was like, well, was this something I could have caught earlier? But, through time of going through these experiences, you realize that there are just some things that is, a part of your story, a part
Mm-hmm.
of your journey. And that's it. And you learn from it and you just try to do the best that you can to move forward. But it was scary. And it was so connected. Nobody said, oh, maybe you need to go and let him be seen with a neurologist.
No.
Nobody. They
The school system
automatically
will automatically
automatically gave him an
graduate.
evaluation in school, put him on
Mm-hmm.
an IEP, and then he was labeled emotionally disturbed,
Mm-hmm.
and that was it.
I have this. I have a number of stories with that one. What I first want to say is I'm not a clinician, so I cannot give clinical advice, but the advice that I give is based on the research that I've done, the medical clinicians that I do work with and speak with and get support from and learn a lot from. More importantly, my experience in dealing with this for the countless years that I've had to be a caregiver for, my son who has refractory epilepsy. I'm actually seeing some comments. Do you mind if I?
Yes, please, because
Okay.
I was just gonna say,
Yeah, because these are really two questions that are vital to the show. The first one, Tiffany Matthias, sorry. Thank you for having a comment and good question. Are there signs that a seizure is coming on? Is there anything the person or caregiver can do to prevent a seizure? Diet changes, maybe? Okay, so I'm going to tackle each question one by one.
mm-hmm,
Are there signs that a seizure is coming on? With some people, yes, they're called auras. Every person is different, every seizure is different.
mm-hmm,
So, in the event with my son, there are times that he said that he had felt something was coming. It was just a weird feeling in his head. And there were times that he didn't feel anything. He could just be talking the way I am and then boom, have a convulsion.
right,
Um, some people smell things. Some people can taste certain things in their mouth before they have a seizure. Some
mm-hmm.
people, in my situation, I do have epilepsy. I am well controlled. There was a time that I was having convulsions, and with me, I know a convulsion is coming. I'll start seeing colored spots all over. Just
Amen would see stuff.
I would just see color spots, and I would see them maybe 2 weeks before the seizure would hit.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it wasn't like a automatic. I wasn't seeing it right before I had the seizure. I would see it for weeks before, and I knew something was coming. Sometimes I would smell something that wasn't there. It wasn't always the same aura. So to answer that question again, it's every person is different and every seizure is different. The auras can be interchangeable throughout every seizure. Um, is there something you can do to prevent a seizure? Well, if you know the person and you know their auras, or you know how they act before they have a seizure, many people I've heard, and I've seen this with my son, their emotional state would change before a seizure was going to come. So you kind of learn the patterns when you're dealing with someone that has repeated seizures. And when I say seizures, let me specify convulsions. We're talking
Yes.
about convulsions. We're talking about the seizures where someone loses conscience, falls to the ground, and they are not aware of what's going on. Those seizures are most dangerous. Why? Because of where they happen. They
Mm-hmm.
put them at risk for
Every.
serious injury.
Yes.
Now, there are seizures that do the same amount of damage to the brain over time. You just don't notice them. But I will tell you the symptoms are very similar to ADD, which no longer exists anymore. Now it's ADHD. It's only ADHD. That's a whole other topic. But we're talking about lack of focus, daydreaming or spacing out, memory loss. So if you see a person is speaking and they just stop and they forget what they were saying, there's other things that aren't seizures that people have that.
Right.
But when you start seeing these signs, it's important to say, you know what, let's get checked out by a neurologist, because
Yeah.
something is going on neurologically. It may
Yeah.
not be epilepsy, it could be something else, but we want to know. And so you have your absent seizures, which are the ones that you don't notice unless you are aware of the symptoms or what they look like.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have convulsions. Now, if you see a person and you know that their pattern is showing they're going to have a convulsion, the best thing you can do is just watch and make sure they're never in a situation where they are around in a dangerous situation where if they have a seizure, they can hurt themselves. For
Right.
example, if you know that the person has seizures and they're starting to show signs that one is coming, it wouldn't be wise to have them travel on the train to go anywhere, or ride a bike, or get behind the wheel of a car.
Right.
If you have someone with seizures that they tend to have convulsions, have carpeting in your home. Don't have anything with a sharp edge or glass, where if they fall and hit their head, they can really hurt themselves. Have a bed that has rails, so that way if they, God forbid, have it in their sleep, they don't fall off the bed and hurt themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure if when you have a bathroom, it's very important. Make sure the
Yeah.
doors are able to be pulled out. I learned this the hard way with my son. We
Yeah.
had a bathroom door, and it was an apartment bathroom, so it was really small. He's 6 feet tall. At that time, over 200 pounds, like a football player. And when he had a convulsion in the bathroom, he was seizing, and we couldn't get to him because he blocked the door.
Yeah.
So I had to fight for management to not only not charge me, because we had to break the door down to get to him, but I had to fight to get them to change the door to where it opens out. So now I know, again, learning lesson. Wasn't told, just in case, this is what you do, have this safeguarded. No, I learned this the hard way, and this is what I teach other people. So there are things you can do to prevent, not necessarily the seizure,
Right. The
but
injury.
to prevent, right, the severity of the injury and
Yeah.
what could happen. Um, Having diet changes, that's a very tricky thing, because every person is different. I know the keto diet is a big one that they've researched, but in a situation where you have someone with refractory epilepsy, and what refractory epilepsy is someone who their epilepsy is not controlled by medication alone. So there's usually surgery that has to come into play. Um, my son, as well as myself, have the VNS, which is a vagal nerve stimulator, and it comes with a magnet. And what it's supposed to do is prevent a seizure from happening, or activate it when you swipe the magnet. So that way the person doesn't A, have the seizure, or B, it stops the seizure. With diets, it puts the body through a traumatic shock. And the keto diet is one that's known that although many people respond well to it, it has to be closely monitored in a hospital with someone who has constant convulsions, because it puts the levels in the body to a traumatic shock to where it triggers off more seizures. So, some people, we also have to think about if there's any other illnesses that the person has. Okay, so stopping certain things may not be the answer. If, for example, stopping meat may not be the answer for the seizures, because if they're anemic, they need meat. So it's kind of like you have to also take into consideration what else is going on with the person. And any kind of diet changes, I always say, yeah, you have to learn to figure things out for yourself in your situation, but always talk to a physician to make sure it's done with proper monitoring and constant level checks, because that's really important. Bernadette Starkey, I heard you are supposed to put a fork or spoon in their mouth. What is the correct response to seeing someone have a seizure? Okay. First of all, you never put anything in their mouth. Absolutely nothing. Another myth, you cannot swallow your tongue during a seizure. What you're supposed to do is, if the person is seizing, convulsing, preferably lay them on their left side, because it has to do with the heart rate. Preferably lay them on the left side. If you can only get them to the right side, by all means, get them to the right side. Make sure that everything in their mouth is coming out. Because what happens is when someone is having a seizure, they might vomit, they might foam, saliva, all that collects in the mouth, and they can choke on that. So you want to make sure that everything in the mouth is coming out so they can breathe better during the seizure. They usually say don't call 911 unless they're going past 4.5 minutes. I say if you're worried and you're scared and you don't know, just call 911. Call them. Because if you wait for 4 minutes, let's just think of the logic behind this. If you wait for 4.5 minutes to actually get on the phone and call 911, you have to wait from that 4.5 minute gap for them to get, which can be 6 to 7 minutes. And by that time, the person could go brain dead. I say just call 911. Make sure there's nothing around them that they can, when someone is convulsing, they're forcibly shaking and their head is the most fragile. They're hitting their head. So make sure you might want to put, with my son, I used to put his head on my lap. So that way when he was hitting, he had cushion. And make sure they're laying on their side and there's nothing around them that can fall on them or that they can really hit their head and hurt themselves on. The only correct response is to stay with them during the seizure, keep them safe, call 911. When you see they're coming out of the seizure, it's important to ask questions, very basic childlike questions, to make sure their memory is coming back and to make sure that there's nothing more serious going on from that seizure. Something as simple as, who am I? What's my name? Where are we? Very simple things. Make sure they recognize who you are. It may take a few minutes, but after you see it's a few minutes and they still don't know who you are, that's a red flag that there could be some kind of brain damage going on from that seizure. Tiffany, I saw a video on social media where the little girl had a seizure on camera. She didn't have convulsions, but though her eyes were open, she was not present. Yes, we actually, Tiara, you saw this. We had the event recently, April 20th, and one of my speakers, my testimonial speakers, while she was up there speaking, she was having seizures. The exact same type, Tiffany, that you're speaking of. They're not convulsions, but she was spacing out during the seizures, and it's like she wasn't really there. So that's the absent seizures that I was talking about. They're called petit mal. So it's like, unless you're aware of epilepsy or you're aware of what those seizures look like, you wouldn't even know they're happening. I was diagnosed when I was about 14 with epilepsy, but I was having these symptoms from when I was in second grade. And I kept getting yelled at all the time for daydreaming and not paying attention. And sometimes you'll be on page 3 and next thing you know, you're on page 10 in class, but you don't know what happened in between. So that's what those look like. And this young lady actually was having it during the event, which she stayed, and she was fine, thankfully. But it's real. And the people that have learned what it is that they're looking at actually saw it. Thank you, Natima. I'm just reading down the comments. This is so informative. Thank you. Thank you for sharing 4 minutes. That actually is what they tell you. Now keep in mind, after a while, you get used to, I hate to sound like this, but it's the only way I can put it. When you're so used to seeing something and dealing with it, you don't panic as much as you do in the beginning. But it's just a common sense. Like if you're telling someone call 911 at 4.5 minutes, because 4.5 minutes is puts the person at risk to become brain dead. Why wait 4.5 minutes? You're just kind of prolonging that to happen, because again, by the time you get through to 911 and you have to answer all their questions and you're trying to maneuver the person that you're dealing with. And here's another thing: when someone has a convulsion, their body locks, their muscles. It's like you're dealing with them triple their size. So a lot of times the caregiver gets hurt physically
Yes.
trying to keep the person safe, especially if you're dealing with a male who's an adult or adult size. Think about it.
Eamon had gained a lot of weight, and it was difficult with him, especially getting him up off of the ground.
Yeah, it's very hard, which is why I say, I know they tell you the left side, but we can't always do that. We can't always get them to the left side. So if he's closer to the right side, and that's the easiest for me to get him to safety and not hurt myself in the process, then that's what it is. And I always say, if you're scared, if you're not sure, just call 911. That's what they get paid to do.
Yeah, I couldn't wait the 4.5 minutes. By 2 minutes, if his seizure went 2 minutes long, I knew it was too long.
Yeah.
So, and in all of those cases that I felt the need to call, it was the right choice to call. So.
And then when you're dealing with young males, that stubbornness. So when he would wake up and come back to reality and, why'd you call 911? I didn't hit you. And then you're dealing with that aftermath. It's like, oh, nothing I do is right. We're just trying to make you safe. But there's so much that comes with this. Tiffany, I'm definitely gonna talk about that. That was actually coming soon. After we speak more on this. But thank you for the great questions. I have another story that this story is vital to me, because this is a part of where I learned how serious advocacy and awareness is. Okay, so my son was going to a hospital. I'm not going to say the hospital. It was a fairly good hospital. They couldn't manage the seizures or get them controlled, so they referred him to an epileptologist. The epileptologist, in reality, only has 2 additional years of experience specifically to epilepsy. But hey, I was worth a try because nothing else was working. I liked the epileptologist. I liked him a lot. But unfortunately, because that still didn't work, it was kind of like they told me, well, there's not much more we can do for him. And once I can't help him, then that's what it is. That's pretty much what I was being told in a nice medical way or professional way. So I decided to change hospitals. As a matter of fact, no, backtrack. Before I changed the hospital, this last doctor, I didn't care for her. I didn't care for her at all. I don't know what it was. It was just something in the air that just, and the first thing that struck me was I was at a point that I wanted to look into CBD oil for him. And I was doing my research because I didn't want a situation where he was high. I learned that CBD does not have, bear with me, THC.
THC.
Yeah. So I said, okay, I'm going to look into CBD oil. I had met a few people through events that I did that were willing to help me get my hands on it. And when I went to the doctor and asked her opinion, she says, oh, I don't think that's a good idea. And I said, well, why? We tried everything else. He had surgery. So what else is there to try? And she says, well, it's very expensive now. That is such an insult. And my automatic defensiveness came. And I looked at her and I said, are you trying to say because I'm a Latina from the Bronx, I can't afford what I need for my son? That's not your place or business to tell me what I can afford or not afford. It's only your place to write the prescription. That's all you have to do. I'll handle everything else. That was the strike one. So every time I took him for his follow-ups, and you know how this goes, where you have to go into the hospital for every year for an EEG for a few days, blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
So she always kept asking me, did you record a seizure? Did you record a seizure? I said, no, I didn't record a seizure. I'm sorry. I'm still worried about him living through the seizure. I'm not worried about grabbing my phone and putting my code in and figuring out how to put my camera on. No.
There's no way.
Interestingly, based on what you just told me, the mental illness, she says, he's been being treated for many years for seizures, but none of us have seen him have a seizure. So, we may have to consider that this might be a psychiatric seizures. There really are seizures, but they're more psychiatric. And I just said, oh, so let me get this straight, because you haven't seen a seizure. You want to label him with a psychiatric condition? No disrespect to those who really do have psychiatric conditions. I feel for them and their families, but I know what my son has.
Right.
And if you're telling me that you're going to label him with a psychiatric condition because you haven't seen a seizure, then how are you going to explain all these medications that you've had me try on him without having a seizure? So I said, okay, you know what? You're going to see a seizure. When does he come in for his video EEG? When is he scheduled to come in? She said at the end of the month. I said, good. He's going to be in this hospital for 5 days and you're going to get paid and this hospital is going to get paid through his insurance. Well, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to sleep deprive him. I'm going to malnutrition him for that whole week. I'm bringing every electronic in that room and setting it up to where he is going to be behind the electronics the whole time. And I want a bike in his room. If I don't get that, he's not staying in here. Sure enough, they put a bike in his room. What do you think happened on day 4 after I made him lose sleep, not eat, stay behind electronics, and put him on the bike on day 4? What do you think happened?
He had a seizure for them.
He had a convulsion. Oh, all of a sudden, yeah, they confirmed it was a convulsion. Why did I have to do that?
And it's always like that.
I came home and beat myself up.
Yeah.
All because I didn't want my kid labeled with something. And it's not to say that something is wrong with people who have mental. I'm not saying that. But do you know if I didn't do that, they would have had me thinking that he had a psychiatric condition and stick him on all these psych meds. And I would like to also let you know, many people don't know this. Psychiatric medication, one of the side effects is seizures. You don't have to have epilepsy. Side effects to psychiatric medication are seizures.
Right.
Seizure medication side effects are psychiatric side effects. The two work hand in hand. So you have to be very careful that when you're medicating your child or someone you love, period, or yourself, that you're being medicated for what you actually have. Mm-hmm. And this is why awareness is so important. If I didn't know about epilepsy and I wasn't paying attention to my son and what was going on, I would have went with everything that was thrown at me and not even questioned it.
Right.
Because as a parent, you're desperate. You just want things to go back to normal. You just want your kid back. It wasn't like he was born like that I would have been used to this is what it is. It was like everything was normal until 12, 13 years old.
And what you just said is one of the biggest things that I'm still struggling with. Amen has been seizure free since April 27th of 2022. And so, very grateful for that. But sometimes I feel like I'm still mourning my son because he's a total different child now. Those, the short period of time that he was going through this changed and had a huge impact on him. And he's still my baby. I still love him to death, but it was a different child. Or he had different behaviors than now. And so sometimes I miss things. And I used to say, that was wrong, but I came to a realization that it's not. When someone changes, they change. And it's okay to miss certain things about that individual. And that's for any reason that they change. They might be fine and then they end up with a mental health illness. They're still, that person on the inside. So I was able to get over that, but it's hard. It's hard.
You don't get that back. It it's the brain. Any changes to the brain affects the person, and you're talking about trauma to the brain. um I also want to say something before I forget. You do not have to have epilepsy to have seizures.
No.
This is another reason why I'm so big on, I'm not just big on epilepsy awareness, I'm big on now seizure safety awareness, because you have people that do not have epilepsy. Okay, epilepsy is not curable. If you've been diagnosed with epilepsy, it's because you have irregular brain patterns that are not going anywhere. You can have epilepsy and be seizure free for a certain amount of time. Some people don't have seizures ever again. Other people with epilepsy, you're never safe, because no matter how long you go without a seizure, it can come back at any time.
Yes.
You have people who do not have epilepsy, but you can have seizures from drinking alcohol or illegal substances, or
Accidents.
pregnancy or hormonal changes,
Mm-hmm.
fevers.
Menstrual cycles.
You don't have epilepsy, but these things will affect or trigger a seizure in someone without epilepsy. So that this is why it's so important for awareness to be in our community, in our schools. We just spoke about the symptoms of our kids being labeled with learning delays and psychiatric conditions when they're not being taken to a neurologist. Our NYPD, or our police law enforcement period, needs to be aware on how to handle or recognize seizures. um EMS, many don't know this, but EMS is not trained in seizure safety.
Nope.
They are not trained, which is
Which is
something I'm going to advocate for.
which is scary at the time. I'm calling somebody who might have the same knowledge as me.
Right. As a matter of fact, there was a point that when my son had a seizure here, I was actually schooling EMS. Now, they're good for a few things. Obviously, if there's something traumatic going on at that moment, they regulate the heart rate and they check the vital signs and their transportation to get there faster, where, to take him. But they're not trained in and this I learned from someone I know who used to work as an EMS worker, and he didn't even know what I was talking about when I came to him with seizure cure and what I advocate for. He's like, "What do you mean epilepsy? What's that?" Yes, it really is. I'm sorry, Crystal. You do not put anything in the mouth of someone having a seizure. Yes, this was told by a 911 operator and the doctor at the emergency room. You try to get them on a hard surface and get them on their side. Right. Recently, I have noticed that my son makes a screaming sound right before he has a seizure. And yes, because of the amount of seizures, he has been diagnosed with brain damage to the front. I'm sorry. Right now, the issue is he's dealing with is the effects. I'm sorry to hear that. Um, but that's everything that I have pretty much said. The same thing. You don't put nothing in the mouth, put them on your side, and to get them to the proper help right away. Call 911 and I'm
So I want to apologize. I decided to use my phone instead of my laptop because I couldn't get the audio to work. And I've gotten 2 phone calls so far that have knocked out all the audio so I can't hear. So that's why I had to keep coming back.
No, that's fine. I just kept going because I'm
No,
reading
thank
the
you.
comments and responding, and I'm loving the comment. I'm loving this. This is like the first interview I've had
Well,
where there's like so much, there's an opportunity for dialogue, and then there's a lot of people commenting and saying things that are really good.
well, I know that I did say in the beginning I was really nervous and I didn't know about this. However, we're definitely going to have to come back and do a part 2 because we didn't really, I mean, we told a lot, but we didn't get to talk about how it is as a caregiver.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't get to talk more about Seize the
Support.
Cure. And
Mm-hmm.
since, we're coming up on our end time, I would like for you to tell a little bit about Seize the Cure
Okay.
and how people can find you and get more information. And if there's anything else in the future that you plan on trying to do in New York.
Yeah, we do need a whole nother show for this. You just tell me the day and time I'm there. Okay, so how do I sum this up? Seize the Cure is now a not-for-profit, and pretty much my mission is I have been appointed to represent the Bronx in epilepsy awareness, but now I call it the Bronx and beyond because I don't want to limit myself to just the Bronx. Am I the representation? Yes. Advocacy, I plan on doing for the Bronx because it's the forgotten borough, and there is no advocacy in epilepsy or seizure safety in the Bronx. I I I'm getting tongue twisted. My mission is to do events, all different types of events, including music in it, because I am an artist. And we usually have big events. We'll have like a concert slash forum where we'll have testimonial speakers, we'll have performances, we'll have informational vendors, all kinds of activities. We just had one April 20th, which was a beautiful success, but I'll wait for the next show to talk about that.
Yes.
So my plan with Seize the Cure, now that I've done a total of 8 events and one workshop I've done 2 workshops in 2 schools. I want to focus more on getting mandatory trainings in the law enforcement and in the schools. I would like to do a 1-week music tour where we go to different hospitals and perform for the patients in the neurology or neurosurgery floor. I would like to take a week in New York and go to different schools. I did it out here in Florida. I didn't ever even got, you know what, we have to do another show. There was a story I had to talk about with you. Okay. I want to go to the schools in New York for a whole week where I'm doing seizure safety trainings to the students and to the staff. Um, so I'm pretty much building from what I've done and building it up. All I want to do is help people. All I want to do is educate people. You know, no matter how much book smart you may have, or these doctors, yes, they're great. They're doing their job, but there's no knowledge that you can give or get, especially from someone who has been through it and is still going through it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I want to do. Spread awareness, advocate for what's right. If I want to get it to where we're getting more support, not only from the community, but from our physicians, meaning social. If your child is diagnosed with epilepsy or any condition for that matter, that's a life-threatening condition and that is a life-changing condition, you should automatically be given a caseworker that comes to your house and tells you how to safety-proof your house and what to expect. Okay, no one should have a child with seizures and not be able to afford what they need to keep their child safe.
Right.
I had looked into getting the dogs that are trained in
A
seizure.
service dog.
Service dog, $10,000.
There has to be
$10,000.
there has to be another way around that. I know a few people, and I don't think that they pay $10,000. So we're going to talk about that.
Yeah, that was part of another show, obviously, because that was part of what I wanted to talk about. All the things that are available, people can't afford.
Right.
So that's what Seize the Cure is. It's something that was organically built I had no intention of doing this. 2017 was supposed to be a one-time event. And next thing I know, this has become my dream and my passion before my music. I'm working on this more and I still don't have a solo song out yet. So this is what it is. I plan on doing more fundraisers. You can find me in the meantime. You can find me Facebook, Seize the Cure, or you can directly contact me, TJ Vida, VIDA. Website is seize the cure number 4 epilepsy at gmail. www.seizethecure number 4 epilepsy.com. Gmail is seize the cure for epilepsy at gmail.com. And of course, Instagram, TJ Vida or seize the cure.
Okay, and we have a few minutes with everything, all the great questions that were in the comments and the discussions that we've had. Do you have a gem drop to drop on our audience?
Oh goodness, I got so many of them. Where do I don't even know. How about you do the first one? That I need some motivation with this one.
Okay, so from the conversation that we had today, I think the gem drop that I want to drop is for the caregiver. Do not forget about yourself. And for the people who are around the village, the tribe of that individual, try to extend yourself just a little bit because it's hard. It's really rough dealing with a child that has a chronic illness and trying to maintain your own life. And so I just wanted, to let the tribe and the community of those caregivers know that we need the love and we need the support. So if you can just extend just a little bit, it'll help the day go a lot easier. Because trust me, most caregivers are in panic mode almost all the time or worrying about what's going to happen. So that's my gem drop to the tribes and communities of people who are dealing with, who are, in contact with caregivers.
So I get one gem drop. Let me see, which one should I do first? Which one should I choose?
The sweet one.
The what?
The sweet one.
Okay. Any situation that you have been given in life, and we're speaking about health right now. Doesn't necessarily have to be epilepsy. It could be anything that's affecting your life, whether it's you or a loved one. And it wasn't anything that you asked for or brought on. Because sometimes things, no matter how good you are, how careful you are, things are given to you. Make something good out of it. This is what I've done with Seize the Cure. Take the trauma, the heartache, the lessons, the stress, the frustration, take it and make something good out of it. Because trust and believe it could always be worse. It can get worse. And on top of that, there's always someone that could learn from you. And this is a hard thing. There's so many dimensions to that. We're dealing with this. Everything from what I've had to deal with as a mother, the lack of support the support I really needed, I couldn't get. And it taught me a lot about quote unquote family and people just throwing out the words, oh, it's going to be okay. I support you. You support me. Well, will you keep my kid for a weekend so I could get a break? Oh, no, I'm scared of him having a seizure because you don't know what the hell to do. So let's talk about support. We're not talking about typing or pressing a like button or saying, I support you. We're talking about real support and from who it's really needed from. Mm-hmm. Take these things and make something good out of it. Because the people that you help along the way and the people that can relate to your situation, that becomes your family.
Yes.
More than your own. So there's always something good you can make out of something bad. Are you serious? You can learn how to do that.
Oh my gosh.
You're bringing a gem to people's lives. I always said, if I could have 500 people at an event, and if I reached one person, I did my job. So that's what it is. I have more gems, but she said I'm only allowed one, and the show's about to end. So I'm going to read the last few comments while we're waiting. Some that is important. We had an emergency, and I'm sorry, Ivory Ellison. Okay, look at that. A student had a seizure in school today. Sometimes people don't know what to do. Yeah, which is why awareness is so important, because if you, it always comes to you like, I heard of this, I remember this.
I had a training done when my son first started having seizures. I wanted to make sure that where he was, they were going to be able to support him. And so I arranged for training at his school. And I also arranged for a training at the after school program that he was going to.
Well,
So,
please get me into those schools, because for everyone watching here, I see some of you commented that you know people with epilepsy or have had seizures. One thing I do need support on is when I do have my future events or any workshops, I need people to come out and be a part of, whether it's speaking or just attending or getting people to come out to get this information.
yeah.
So by all means, like, I really do hope we have a part 2 to this, because there's a lot more that we didn't get to touch on, and I will have more information as to, you know, what's coming up or how you can be a part and get on before I even plan it. You could get in on it, so that would be great.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining
Thank
us. And
you for
I
having
definitely
me.
look forward to us doing this again, even though I was a little nervous. But
I told you you'd be fine.
I just want to remind everybody to head over to www.diamondwriters.com and make sure that you register for our virtual journaling series that is going on this summer. Make sure you go and do that. And with that, I just want to say good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Let's go. Let's go.